Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hey everyone. So good to be back and see you again. And as you just heard, welcome to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we're broadcasting on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. God bless both of them, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. So before I get started, I just want to let you quickly know that we have two shows a week. One is on Thursday, which is a live show that airs at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the other one is typically a pre-recorded show that airs on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But moving forward, we're going to be doing a lot more live shows on Friday, which is super exciting. I'm going to try to open up my schedule because I have a full schedule all the way until January. And I would like to open up the lives because I like the interaction of the chat too. I dig it. I mean, the pre-recordings get aired, of course, on the same platform through the same social media, but I'm going to devote Fridays to doing some more lives. So yeah, stay tuned for that. That'll be super duper fun. But thank you again for joining us. And today I am thrilled to be able to have back with us again, Brandon Martin. Now, I had a conversation with him about a month ago or so, and it intrigued me so that I asked him to come back because I still have a lot of questions for him. And a little bit about him. He's the founder of Seed Truth Academy. And today we're going to have a discussion that I'm really excited to move forward with. So in a world full of news filtered with endless information, it's often difficult to separate fact from fiction. And we all know this with the iteration of AI and how it's become so difficult to even tell truth from fiction and know what's real and what's not. And our perceptions are being shaped for us. They really are through social media. Now, fortunately, a lot of us don't buy into it, but there are a lot that do. And it happens often without us even knowing. So today, we're embarking on a journey beyond the surface to explore what's true and what's not, and how we can reclaim our own perspectives. And we're going to have a discussion about truth too, which is really important to me. So we're also going to be diving deep into natural law again and the ancient wisdom traditions. And we're going to discover how these timeless principles can help us navigate the modern world. So let me bring Brandon. Brandon,
Hello.
so good to have you back.
Yeah, it's awesome. I really enjoyed our last discussion.
Thank you. I did too. You're definitely one of my favorite people to talk to.
Oh, that's
It's true.
awesome.
Yeah, it's true. Like I could do a monthly show with you with no problem.
Yeah, well, I don't mind coming back on if you have any further topics that you want to
Oh, that'd be
discuss.
awesome. That'd be awesome. There's just so much. And there was so much we didn't cover last time.
Mhm.
And I want to, and it's funny because I wanted to kind of step out of the gate with the topic of truth. And I know you're so well informed with natural law and this topic. And the reason being that, like, in the past, I always thought that there were truths and non truths. And even, with science, I fully believed. But over the past 5 years, I've really come to question that big time for many reasons. And we're going to unpack a lot of that today. Now, is there such a thing as truth? Maybe let's dive in and see, because I know with natural law we talked about truths and morality and things that are true by nature. But I don't know. I think truth, and you can correct me, please, I think truth is very temporary and very objective. So look at what happened over the past 5 years. So we have to be careful of how we word this, but with what we just went through, everybody knows what I'm talking about. You know, we were told to trust the science, trust the science, trust the science, and everybody did. And the science turned out to be a big, fat, freaking lie
Yes, indeed.
in so many freaking ways. And that was one of the things that really made me even question science itself. Okay.
Right.
Now I know that there are truths that are discovered and at the time they're true. And then something like quantum physics happens and it makes all of those things that we knew not true anymore. So you take it from here. Well, first, do you want to like re-explain who you are for folks that maybe didn't see the last show? And of course I'll have links and everything to where they can watch that again. And but let you take the stage for a minute and tell people about seedtruth.com and who you are.
Yeah, I grew up in a very unique background, coming from the underground punk and music industry, specifically with skateboarding involved. My dad was a founder of a huge DIY skate park, which we got affiliated with Viva La Bam. We were on Tony Hawk's Underground Part 2. And so I grew up in the skateboard and music industry, organizing conferences, events, things of that sort. I grew up with a very eclectic access to many different, great authors and a very, very intelligent father. So he was making me read things from Aldous Huxley, Julian Huxley, George Orwell. These were required readings in my household to understand the geopolitical world and to get a firm basis of a good worldview that's not poisoned, obviously. So I was partially homeschooled as well. Eventually, I got activated and then I started my own conference, which is called the Seed Conference. And then it kind of organically grew into the Seed Truth Academy. And that tends to be where I focus most of my work at this point. I'm involved with a lot of other people from what's known as the One Great Work Network, which you can find that at the onegreatworknetwork.com. So I work within a community that tends to be circling around, trying to bring about the abolition of slavery in all forms. So this is what we're trying to do daily.
Awesome. Now that I think that's how I found you was on that one great network.
Yes, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few good folks on there that I reached out to that I scheduled interviews with. I'm so glad that I tripped upon that. I don't even remember how I did, but I was glad. Probably on YouTube or something. But anyway, so um, going back to my opening statement, like you take it from there. Out of all
Okay.
the pieces of what I said, just go for it.
Okay, so what we're talking about, so when it comes to what the nature of truth actually is. So you made a statement earlier, right? You said, is there such a thing as truth, right? And that's a very good question, and it is something that we have to have a firm foundation in for us to be able to navigate the world that we exist in. And so whenever we state something where we have a underlying presuppositional idea. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of things that come before the premise that we lay out. And so in philosophy, whenever you're looking at presuppositions, it helps you to stay in consistency without falling into contradiction. So, for example, the statement that there's no such thing as truth, well, the easy way to actually disregard this statement is in two ways. One, if you ask yourself, is that statement true? Is it true that there's no such thing as truth? Well, if it's
Mhm.
true, then there is such a thing as truth. So it cancels out the statement itself. And the second one is okay, if it's not, then it is true because you end up saying there is such a thing as truth. So both ways you end back up at the same, destiny, the same point, the same marker, you could say. So we're talking about this concept of something that tends to be a little too heady for a lot of people to understand. They tend to take it as the totality of God's knowledge or the totality of the every level of every dimension and things like this, right? And when I talk about truth, I try to make it a very simple thing that gives somebody the framework to be able to work within the reality that they do work in at this level of reality. Because that's the main thing we're trying to do. We're trying to build our mental faculties, our reason, our logic, our emotions, our intuition, so that we can create good things in the world. And for this, we have to have firm principles and firm axioms. So when it comes to truth, we have to understand that in philosophy there's the study of epistemology.
Hmm.
Epistemology simply means episteme is knowledge and ology is just the study of. So it's the study of knowledge, but it's in a specific way. It's to justify whether there is such a thing as knowledge or not. So the thing is that without truth, you can't understand what knowledge is. So at the basis of knowledge, you have to have some form of truth. Is it true that there is knowledge or not? So most of our ideas that we're putting down are all based upon this presupposition of truth versus falsehood. So, for example, you brought up the past 5 years, right? Okay, yes. So they said believe the science. Was it true? Well, no, it wasn't true. The science was flawed, obviously, and there
Hmm.
was special interest agents that were manipulating all the data that we know about, obviously, and it came out eventually. So the science is not what is true because the scientific community, specifically scientism, is based upon consensus theology, being that it becomes a religion of consensus and ad populum, meaning it's ruled by the most popular. And the many, the masses, right? So whoever is popular, whoever has the status, and whoever has the money, and how many people are backing that, right? So pretty much ruled by the most ignorant. It's pretty similar to democracy in a way, right?
It is
So
truly.
yeah, so scientific methodology actually is very interesting because it's important, but it is only a marker for us to use our subjective perception to try to get as close to truth as possible. So let me
Hmm.
give you an example here. Let's say we have two contradicting ideologies, right? And we're gonna use a shape, a form that will help us to envision this. So let's take a cylinder, right? One side of it is a circle, and the other side is an elongated rectangle, pretty much, right? Has curved edges on the top, but other than that, it's a cylinder. So if you shine a light from one side and it hits a wall, right, it's going to look like a rectangle. But if you shine a light from the other side, it hits another wall, it's going to look like a circle. Both of
Hmm.
those statements would be true. If you said it's a rectangle, you would say, okay, that's true because that's the viewing point that we're seeing it from. If you say it's a circle, that's true as well. But what the truth of it is, it's a cylinder. So now we understand that we can both be in the right, but viewing it in a very minimal data point, being that we have a limited perspective of the thing. It's not the holistic truth.
Correct.
It's simply a version of it. It's simply a viewpoint of it. And this is why I like the allegory of the Knights of the Round Table, because it represents 360 awareness. So whenever you have enough people in a circle, full 360, then you're going to gather as much viewing perceptions as possible on
Mm.
one specific topic in the center point of that round table. So that's what our job here is to do, is to align perception with the objective laws of nature. We want to live in harmony with nature. That's our purpose here, is to live in harmony and to steward nature, not to live in opposition and to fill our environments with toxicity and to just rape the resources from the land and the people and the animals and everything like this. We want to
Yeah.
live in some sort of homeostasis with them. And for that to be done, we have to understand that to get to a moral premise, we have to have an objective truth behind it. If there's no such thing as objective truth, then morals become arbitrary and they just become whatever we say it is rather than what it actually is, right? So An example of this I gave last time is if you have an assaulter and then a victim, let's say a rapist and the victim of the rape, right? And they both are having ideas that are different with morals. One
Mhm.
is that, hey, I'm being raped, I'm the victim, and I'm saying that what you're doing is wrong and this is objectively wrong, right? And the other one's saying, well, this makes me feel good. It's just completely fine. I get what I want. And this is my truth in that situation that I feel good about this. I have a hedonistic pleasure with it. And so I'm right, right? So now you have a contradiction and you have a competition between who is actually correct and who is not. Well, what defines what is correct is not the perceptions of the individuals. Those are just viewing lenses to see what is actually taking place. One is obviously wrong and one is obviously right. The one who is right is obviously that, hey, rape is wrong universally. And I think everybody would understand that at that level. Once you get to the extremes, you start to get into some nuances that can get a little bit more complex.
Right.
But for the basics of rape, we understand that that's a universal wrong. And if we believe that, then we already have a basis for an objective truth because that means that it can't change. It's something that's separate from the perceptions of the event taking place. So what is a perception, right? We have to ask this. A perception is a subjective interpretation of something that we are perceiving. That's
Mhm.
similar to consciousness, right? So the way I look at perception is it's like glasses. Okay, it's a lens for our consciousness to look at that which is. And so if your prescription for your lenses are good, you're going to see things way more clearly, correct?
Mhm.
If they are bad, then the definition of those things are going to become less clear. That's literally why we have that term definition for, let's say, like televisions. The better the definition is of the television, the more clear the television becomes. The
Mhm.
better the prescription is for your glasses, the more clear the visible reality becomes. Okay. So these things are all very important when we're looking at our ideas because everything from this starts with truth. And if we don't believe that there is such a thing as truth, then we actually fall into a psychopathology known as solipsism. Solipsism means that you believe you're the arbitrator of truth or that there is no such thing as truth. And that everything in reality is simply a figment of your monad mind. And it is a psychopathology. It is a mental illness. And the problem with this is that when you say that, first of all, it's a God complex. You're claiming to be the Most High. You're claiming to be the divine mind of the universe. And the second thing is, it's quite an insult to say that to other sentient, autonomous beings that you are nothing but an NPC in my monad mind.
Right.
I'm not talking
Right.
about collective consciousness, and that you only exist for me, my selfish purpose, for my own personal experience. And that's it. And if there is such a thing as truth, I can't spread it to you. I can't speak it to you because I'm speaking it to myself. Myself already knows it. But most solipsists don't even believe in truth. Yet there's a contradiction there because if they don't believe in truth, well, then how can they be solipsistic, right?
Right.
Because they believe
Right.
in the idea of solipsism as a truth, but yet they can't be there. So the fundamental law that I always follow is the law of non-contradiction. If I find a contradiction in my ideology, I try to reconcile that. So this is in a way reconciling paradoxes. So when we look at things, somebody may say something that is true, but we just don't have the viewpoint, the clarity of the mind or the vision to be able to see that they could be speaking a truth, but we're just not seeing it from the same angle. And we need to open our minds to be and alter our orientation to be able to see that. So I hope that kind of lays a good foundation for truth. I did bring some working definitions for some things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I will say here's a good quote too from George Orwell. Speaking of George Orwell, he says the very concept of objective truth is fading out of the world. Lies pass into history, and this is what we're seeing nowadays. You know, we
Mhm.
see that propaganda, like Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda. He pushed so much propaganda into society, and we see that All the history books are being altered. Our languages are being altered. The
Terrible.
definitions of words are being altered. Yes, it's horrific, right? The idea of science itself is completely being dismantled and altered, where science was actually intended as a authentic method for discovering the laws of nature, how now have now become a political device or weaponized to be used against
Mhm.
individuals for dominance over them, obviously. So I will I'll state this, that the way that I define truth is in a very simple way. It's that which is. That's it. It's a very spiritual concept too. It is simply that which is, or we could elaborate a little bit, which is that which is currently occurring in the present moment of now, and that
Mm,
which has occurred. And that's it. It's not in the future, doesn't exist in the future. Futures are probabilities, they are wave frequencies. But once those wave frequencies have collapsed into a particle, thus we have some quantum theory here, right?
exactly.
It becomes a solidified truth in nature, right? So
Is that
we have
your
to understand.
definition, or did you read that? That's
Uh,
brilliant. It really is.
it's a aggregated synthesis of many different data points, you know. So that's a definition. That which is, I heard that from an old spiritual teacher named Mark Passio. And then, of course, a lot of things started to unravel for me, because once
Mm,
we understand that we're trying to demystify the truth so that even a child can use it as a mental faculty, as a basis, as a philosophy, to be able to navigate this world and build a better self and build better behaviors in that world, to be more creative, to be, to activate the imagination, to be
yeah.
a holistic spiritual being here, and to be able to create in this world for better things rather than being stifled and being in arrested development, right? So the other thing that I would say about the truth is that it's not based upon how we say it is based upon what it actually is. And we can talk about how we say it is, and hopefully we get to what it is. But even if we don't exist, there is other things, being true collective consciousness, that extends beyond the human monad mind, that do exist. So
Mm,
the universe will go on to be a conscious universe, a conscious living organism, even if we don't exist anymore. And it will be experiencing a reality at this level that we could define as an objective truth. And from that, we get universals. And universals are like the rape thing. It's universal no matter what time, no matter what place, no matter what person is perceiving it. It is always going to be wrong. No matter what culture you grew up in, if you
yeah.
grew up in a culture that they said rape was okay, and then you came over here and started raping people, it doesn't change it in any way, shape, or form. So it's immutable, meaning it's unchangeable based upon our wants, our desires, or our decrees, our arbitration, our leaders. So this is another thing. This is the idea of claiming to be God, right? When I can say that I'm a sitting president and I can decide what truth is, thus I can decide what laws I can create, because I'm claiming to be the lawmaker of the world, of the universe, pretty much, but of humanity in this situation. Then I can arbitrate what right and wrong actually is, meaning I can completely flip a right into a wrong on the basis of perception or consensus with other people. If I get together with enough people, if I have 51% of the population that says rape's okay, I can go out and create a law with it. And then next thing you know, the other 49% are all victims of that, right? So we have to be very careful about um, our foundations. And it's interesting because the word principle literally means that which comes first. And I always say the truth is what comes first. It is the first foundation of the divine, really. It literally is. If there's a divine mind, if there's a divine spirit, if there is anything, and I mean, even for the atheist, the truth is the most important. I'm not atheist, obviously, but even for an atheist, they would still say that the truth is the most important.
Absolutely.
That's why
Most
they
of them.
use logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most.
So Another thing I would just add is that our mental faculties are based upon the ability the attempt to try to reconcile what is taking place in reality and what is taking place in our mind and our personal experiences, right?
Mhm.
So, an argument against some objective truth would be like subjective opinions. I call these opinions, not truths. So, for example, I like ice cream, right? I think ice cream is better, like chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla. You might think vanilla is better than chocolate, right? These are preferences and these are personal experiences that are about my subjective consciousness, which are different than me looking at the laws of nature and saying, okay, this is an actual law that has nothing to do with me, that will exist beyond me no matter what.
Mhm. Wow. So many questions.
Yeah. I
No, what you
understand.
said was
It's
what you explained it brilliantly. You really did. And I'm so glad this is recorded because I'm going to go back and re-listen to that again. Um, I think part of the problem is that people are generally lazy. They don't want to be bothered with the truth. I mean, that's just my impression, from being an observer, and that's like that's how I classify myself. I just really like to sit back and observe. And from my observations, the majority of people are, of course, not all, but that's why that saying, the masses are asses, I think, came to be because I
yeah,
think most people innocently are just lazy. They
yeah.
don't want to be bothered discovering what's true and what isn't. Even, when it comes to basic, obvious truths. So you brought up like rape, right?
Mhm.
Now, you take people from other countries. I'm going to try to word this without mentioning anybody specific,
I gotcha.
but I think you'll know what I mean.
I do.
So they come to America with their traditions intact and they continue their traditions even though they're against what morals mandate from that particular country, and they continue to rape and harass women because they think it's okay. How in God's name do you even begin to wrap your head around that? Because they're not even going to jail for these offenses most times. What in the world do we do with a truth that you used as a beautiful example that's clearly a truth when millions and millions and millions of men don't see it as a truth and probably never will?
Well, I would say that that's when you enact the second pillar of enlightenment, which is the self-defense pillar, and you understand that you can delegate that right to other people, such as friends, family, and things like this. Unfortunately, none of this is going to be perfect, right? It's not going to guarantee perfection of safety no matter what. But with the freedom to do so, you can increase the probability of safety. So if these people are unreasonable and they continue to initiate coercive means and initiate violence upon people, then by all means, by whatever means necessary, including putting those people down, you can do that under natural law. The first self defense or the first principle of enlightenment is non aggression, meaning do
Mhm.
not initiate harm against other sentient life
Right,
forms or autonomous
right.
life forms. The second one is there as a contingency to say, okay, you want to fuck around? You're going to find out. And we
Exactly.
might have to use physical force against that. And let's give an example like my grandmother, she's old, she's frail. If she can't defend herself, right? This is where agape comes into being and true care. So you need people like me or like a good neighbor or a good family friend who is capable of coming in to help whenever that situation occurs, right? Or even for her, even though she's frail, she could get herself a gun,
Right.
and I don't
To
like
defend us.
guns.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't personally like guns,
yeah,
but I know that they're required in the world we live in today,
yes,
you know? That's
they are.
just it. I'm not some romantic gun fanatic, I know what they are and what they're used for,
Sure,
and eventually I hope we evolve beyond that. But I'll tell you what, you better have some means to defend yourself, especially as a
absolutely.
frail lady, you know? And so, yeah, I would totally side with an individual putting somebody down for that, no matter what,
Yeah,
including with the other, the ones we're really not allowed to talk about,
right,
right?
right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
And
and that,
it does originate. All of these untruths that countries are built on come from governments, like you said. The people with the power, the people with the money. There's so many countries we could give. Like, look at Venezuela. I mean,
oh
it's so
God,
sad.
horrible.
It's
Yeah.
so horrible and sad. And in
Yep.
America, there's more of that than people are willing to see and acknowledge.
Right.
We are all under a slavery system here. Absolutely, I believe. I mean, and again,
Yes.
yeah, my opinion. And I think that's the
A-
premise of your philosophy as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So the lies come from mutated history that's been, like his story. It's been passed down, changed, and where the population here, the majority of them think that there's this one savior that's going to come and free them all from the bonds of slavery.
right.
And I think I'm smart enough to know better.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it is the hero complex, right?
right.
It's the savior complex where we're always looking to an external, you could even say, archetype to come in and sweep us off our feet in some kind of, fantasy, and save us from ourselves. Really, the only savior is yourself. You're the one who has to
Absolutely.
take responsibility for your own mind, your emotions, and your actions, and
Mhm.
take responsibility for what you're going to do about it.
Yeah,
Are you going
yeah,
to step up and start speaking the truth about what's going on? Are you going to put out good content and do something like that? Are you going to raise some healthy children who can do the same and educate them properly and get them away from the indoctrination camps that we call education? I mean, I don't, there's many options for many different people when it comes to these things. But yeah, there's no savior. There's no one
no,
single person who's going to
no,
come in and be like, oh, yeah, okay, we're going to just stop
no,
all the coercion and violence in government.
no. I
That's not
believe
how it
that.
happens at
Exactly.
all.
No matter how well
Never.
intended, exactly. Never
Yep.
in history, and I don't think ever, ever. Um, I think that good intentions are great. Okay, let me ask you this question because I think it's timely, very timely, and I think it can go to truth and perception very well. Okay. My perception is that no one should burn the American flag because I perceive that to be morally wrong because you live in a country that's giving you freedoms and there's a lot of blessings living in America as well. So I perceive that to be morally wrong. Now, president comes out recently and says anybody that burns a flag gets a year in jail. Now, all the truthers out there that are saying, this law impinges my freedom of expression and speech and goes against the Constitution. So, where is the truth here? Is the truth that it's morally wrong to burn a flag, or is that just my perception, or the truth is it's in the Constitution or amendments or wherever it is, wherever that law sits, that you're not supposed to burn like, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay, yeah, yeah, we can talk about it. I think in my personal philosophy, I would say that that is simply a preference or a boundary for some people, right? Boundaries and morals can be completely different. Preferences and opinions and morals can be completely different. So all we have to ask is it directly violating any individual's liberties? If it is not, then it is not immoral. Thus, if you burn your own flag that you worked for, let me say I went out, I made money as a laborer, as a constructionist, and I go and I buy an American flag, and then I go and I burn that. I'm not violating anybody else's personal private property, their autonomy, their their individuality in any way, shape, or form. Now, if I stole that flag from them, okay, yeah, then I'm
Sure.
violating their private property, right? And if I, let's say, harm them with it, if I kidnap them and blindfolded them and choke them out with it, yeah, it's a violation of that. The flag is just a symbol. And there's a reason why, under the First Amendment, even though I'm not a constitutionalist, I think the Constitution was horrific and it actually led to the monster that we have today. But there are a few amendments in there that were put on to leash the beast, you could say, right?
Exactly. Right.
And they were from the non-federals who were like, hey, we shouldn't be doing this, but if we're going to do it, we're going to put this leash on it. So under the First Amendment, yes, it is protected to be able, that's protected by our perception that we grant this idea that we have the right to rebel against tyrannical states. So, for example, if America, right, became full tyrannical, which it pretty much already is,
Yeah.
but if it became full tyrannical and that law is in place and you're not allowed to speak out against that symbolically, right, that is full dictatorship. That is full censorship. That means that you have to obey, you have to comply with the dictates of those in authority. And this is the moral relativism that I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
the idea here is that if we were just on a desert island and we put that situation between two individuals, we can readily understand that burning a flag is completely, it has nothing to do with it itself. Just burning the flag has nothing to do with any kind of immoral action. Um, Now, as a symbol, right, there's these things called hate speech protection, right? So inciting riots is what
I was
Trump
just
was
going to
actually
ask you
talking.
that. Right.
Right. So the incitement of a riot is considered to be a violation because you're inciting harm, right?
Exactly.
But we have to be very careful with that because when we do that, then we give power over to the government, the authorities who are not here to truly protect us, to continue to use this power to dominate more and more of us. So they get an inch, they go a mile, right?
And
So
they
as
do.
soon as, and that's what happens. So they'll say, here's a problem, right? We've incited some riots. People have been inciting riots by burning flags. And then the people react. And then they're
Yeah.
like, here's the solution. We're going to
Yeah.
lock
Yeah.
everybody up in the entire country for a year, okay, for burning a flag,
Isn't
whether
that
you've
called the
incited a riot or not.
is that called the Hegelian dialectic or something like that?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's called the Hegelian dialectic.
Hegelian
It's
dialectic. Yeah.
yes, it's problem reaction solution. It was
Solution.
created by George Hegel, and he was a great philosopher. And his method is actually used in schools. It's thesis, antithesis or antithesis, and then synthesis is the
Oh,
same thing.
nice.
So
I didn't know
they
that.
yeah, they use it in school. It's part of the trivium process as well. But what has happened is that it has been taken by these master psychologists and master freaking manipulators, and they know how to use it to their advantage because they know that the population is in groupthink and herdthink. And they know that if we have a problem and we present it through the media through a distorted lens, right? Then we can get people to react and then we'll get them on our side so that when we initiate the solution, they're okay with it. They're gonna, be right there next to us. Now, obviously, there's a little give and take with that because some people like me will recognize it and be like, nah, that's actually not okay. You're actually using executive powers that the Congress cannot grant you, which is a violation of the Constitution itself. That's a thing that people don't recognize is that all these executive powers going all the way back to like Woodrow Wilson actually are just an incremental degradation of everybody's liberty. So every time they use executive powers, it's just the beast getting bigger, and they keep usurping more liberties over
And
and
it's
over and
true.
over.
And
Yeah,
they do.
and it's throughout history. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't deny it. So yes, you might not personally like it, right? And I understand that. I personally don't think that it's pragmatic or going to do anything, by burning flags. It's the same thing that I think about people going out and destroying, statues and buildings, It's a symbolic thing, but unless it's yours, then don't fuck with it. Just leave it
Right.
alone. It's
Yeah,
not
I
yours.
agree. I mean, he's saying that it incites violence when
Yeah, so he's
when you
using a very
yeah,
small percentage of the population to
right.
actually make more victims, because when he put that law into place, now we have more victims. So what's going to happen here is, what I mean by victims is more criminals, actually. So as soon as he puts that in, now we have everybody else who are getting guilt by association to that concept. Let's say like a 16-year-old girl just goes out and burns the American flag, lock her up for a year. He said that's what's going to happen,
Yeah.
whether a riot is incited or not. That's the thing. That's the problem. That's
See,
the
that's so
bait on the hook.
wrong.
You know,
Yeah, that's so
they
wrong
give you
on
the
so many
bait.
levels.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's
It
absolutely
is.
horrible. It's
Well, I think
extortion, you know.
the upper courts told him he can't do that, and of course
Mhm.
he's going to appeal that and probably end up winning. But
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, he can oversee that. He can
yeah,
overpower that with the
right,
executive powers he has right now.
right,
There'll be a battle back and forth, but we'll see. You
absolutely,
know, I mean, it's the same game that's always been played. When you look at the Overton window, when you look at geopolitical warfare, you'll see that it's always this back and forth between giving you a little liberty and taking a bunch
exactly.
of it.
Yeah, yeah,
So let's look at the political spectrum for a minute,
yeah.
because well, obviously we're on politics, so we can do this for a minute. So we
Sure.
look at the right wing conservatism. The way that I look at it is national socialism. A lot of right wingers won't agree with that, but when you study politics and you study sociology and you study world history, you're going to see that right wing is actually associated to inter or national socialism, which the tool that national socialism use is fascism. And what I define fascism, not the definition, but it's a very simplistic, just like working understanding of what fascism really does, is that it's the fast track to full spectrum dominance, meaning that we're going to get it done now. We're going to sign all these orders and we're going to put, boots on the ground, and we're going to come in hot and hard, right? The left side is international socialism, being the liberals, and their method is communism. And their method for getting this done is the slow march through all the institutions. We're going to take over the banks. We're going to take over the education. We're going to take over the industry. We're going to go full blown Stalin Marxist, and we're going to do this over a long period of time into full spectrum dominance. They both
Right.
play off of each other to get
Good
the
lord.
same goal done, right? So when you look at it and everybody's like, "Oh, the left would never do this, blah blah blah,"
Yeah,
and then
or
you're like,
shit.
"Actually, they are doing it," and then the
Right.
left,
Exactly.
and then everybody's like, "Oh, the right would never do that. Will never censor people or take their guns or infringe upon the privacy of people." Oh, really? Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure we saw those executive orders come in not too long ago. And
Right.
yeah, the right was doing that as well. So it's like these people got their wires crossed and they don't understand. These people are shaking hands behind the scenes. There's
I
really
was
no
just going to say
difference.
that they are. I think
Yeah.
it's one big, club. And I wish they would take that club and hit themselves over the head with it, because
Yeah.
both of them are abs. I think Groucho Marx said that somewhere, but um, yeah, you explained that so perfectly, because that's what they're both doing,
Yeah.
and they want us to hate each other. Hate,
Yes.
So I think it's the fuel that drives this whole engine, so that we constantly are at civil war with each other, and it's so ridiculous because people are just not seeing what you just explained, that they're both doing the same exact thing.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
because they all want to sugarcoat everything with their flavor of tyranny, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not my tyranny. Don't worry about it. My tyranny is over here. This is how we
Absolutely.
actually do it. So
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
you talked about crime before, and I think we can point this back to that topic because
Yes.
obviously crime is immoral, and
Yes.
it's part of like the philosophies, I think, of natural law. Do no harm to other people in whatever fashion, whether it's stealing, murder, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So the current president, he wants Donald Trump, he wants to stop crime. So when you look at that, you can say, well, that's a good thing, right? I'm That's a good thing. Look what he did to DC.
The
I mean, there hasn't
premise,
been
yes.
a
The
murder there in
premise
over
of it
a
is.
week. Right. So how do you reckon that as like an
How do I
abolition?
reconcile it? I'll tell you
Yeah.
how I reconcile it. Really easy. Okay. So pragmatics, right, would dictate this idea that, okay, like, hey, we just put, military groups in DC and thus almost all the crime stopped, right? And it's like, okay, that's great, but now what are you doing? Right? Like, what else are you doing with that? And how many innocent victims? Like, who's the arbitrator of what's taking place? I want to know the real data, the real statistics on this, because I'm sure in like 5 years, we're going to be looking back and it's going to be like, oh, actually, these were all victimless crimes in most situations. Like maybe there's a small amount. See, we get blinded by like, let's say the extreme where it's like, okay, there was like 1 or 2% of these all
Like
these arrests are
carjackings.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
and or like murder, and one or
Yeah.
2% of them are like this, but all the other ones were just arbitrary victimless crimes where it's like the person was, oh, he's just walking down the street and I didn't like him, and I didn't like the way he looked or his race or, whatever it might be. Ran a traffic sign, ran a stoplight. He went 5 miles over the speed limit, right? It's all victimless crimes. Oh, he parked in the wrong spot. And so now I have a military police state that comes in and beats me down and imprisons me and then fines me. And if I run and I defend my liberty because I haven't harmed anybody, I did not create any victims, then I'm the bad guy who gets put down by the authoritarian tyrant. So we have to understand that it's a chess move, right? It's a sophisticated chess move. And so they're gaining sympathy by putting out these numbers and these statistics. And then what they do is that over time, when you start looking at what actually takes place, is that more harm actually comes from it long term than what people would have supported. But we get sided by it, we're blinded, we got our blinders on, we're not really looking at the holistic picture, we're just looking at these little nitty gritty things that they're feeding us from the media, and we know that the media is not our friend
No.
even. And so here's the thing, it's like this. Here's a great example. I got a great example. All right. If you're in an abusive relationship, right, and your man beats you down all the time, right, and
Mhm.
then he comes in and he's like, oh, I think it's horrible that other men are beating women down. And he goes out and he, stops some people from beating some other women down, right? And it's like, oh, that's good. Good for you. Thank you for doing that. But he's still beating you down. Okay, well, that kind of sucks, that he's still abusing me. Why is that happening? Oh, well, it's because you're my wife and you're my property and I can just beat the shit out of you if I want.
Right.
But those ones are wrong over there, so we can
Yeah.
we can take care of those, no
Yeah.
no matter what. And I'm in the right for doing that. But the idea here also is that imagine if it's just you and him and he goes, "Okay, I think I'm doing wrong. I'm going to bring you some flowers and take you out to dinner." And then next thing you know, 2 weeks later, he's beating you down again. You
Mm.
know, this is the abuse victim relationship. If you ever want to look at the relationship between you and government, all you got to do is look at it in the psychological analysis and framework of like, am I in an abuse victim relationship? Right? How many times has this system beat me down? And then I just keep going back because every once in a while they buy me those flowers and give me those chocolates. Right?
Exactly.
And it's
Yeah,
like
that
every once in a while they're taking me out to a fancy
right.
5-star freaking road trip. And it's like,
Exactly.
oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, Stockholm syndrome at all? Yeah, I think we got Stockholm syndrome. That's what that's called when you identify with the abuser
Absolutely.
and say, okay, this is okay as long as, every once in a while you apologize for it, but you never really stop. And that's the thing about government. It's never really stopped. And the other thing is that it's called ontology in philosophy, the nature of something, the nature of its being. The nature of the being of government is to use violence. There has never been a government throughout all history that has ever not been able to use violence,
Jeez.
ever. It always has to use violence to reach its end. Otherwise, it can't exist because it crumbles away, it falls apart, because then you can't make people do what you want them to do. And this is why government always attracts people who are sociopathic or
Yeah.
psychotic
Yeah.
and narcissistic and nihilistic, and all these sick-minded people who are just power hungry.
Narcissistic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, narcissistic,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They're awful.
The dark triad, the Machiavellians,
Mhm.
so it's a very, very sophisticated thing, and the method by which that they use their mind control is very strategic. You have the top intellects of the world who are top psychologists. I just call them the master dark psychologists of the
Yeah.
world, who know how to manipulate people. That's it. It's just a big manipulation game. And every once in a while, okay, they do some good every once in a while. Well, the Nazis fed their kids too, right after they got done executing people. That's
Exactly.
great. Awesome.
Yeah. No, it's so damn true. Um, how do you parse this out? What is making country like, let's pick Europe. They've essentially destroyed themselves, I think. It's no longer safe for women to walk the streets there at any age. And I can't help but look at it from my womanhood, that perspective, because women are still treated like fourth class citizens in many parts of the globe, even in the US still, I think, which is terrible. Um, how what makes a government destroy itself in that way by implementing massive amounts of migration into a country that essentially ruins its own, history and people that are living there? Like, what's the motive for doing something like that? Is it just votes power? And like, what could possibly make, because now everybody's rebelling over there. I mean, what's happening
Yeah.
over there.
Yep.
I can't wrap my mind around what would make many of these European countries do this.
Well, main thing is that as long as you keep people in fear and you keep people fighting with each other, then the war machine keeps going. That's what governments are. They're a war machine, and they want
They
civil
really are.
discourse, So they get their fuel from the division of genders, That's one of the biggest divisions that they can use because it's 50-50. So they want to divide the sexes, and then they want to divide ethnicities, because a lot of these people at the top are not only racist, but they're eugenicists,
Mhm.
and they believe that their genes are the most superior and it gives them the right to rule. And they want to
Do
breed
this. Yeah.
their stock up. And then they want to use dysgenics to breed our stocks down so that we are easily controllable. Um, so yeah, it's a very sophisticated situation
It is.
across the entire globe, because this is
Yes.
nothing new. All this stuff we're experiencing is nothing new. We've been experiencing it for tens of thousands of years, and it's always rooted in the same dogmatic mindset, which is the dogma of the belief in authority. It's the dogma and the belief of the master slave relationship.
Yeah.
And this also has the root of the dogma of moral relativity, so that we can just arbitrate morals all over the place. So dogmatic religions, dark religions, they're a big issue. I consider government to be nothing but a dogmatic religion.
It
It's
is.
not just the government. I mean, the dark religions rule that,
Yeah.
that's what's really ruling it. And the word religion is very interesting in Latin. It comes from religio religare, and it means to tie, to hold back, or to thwart
Oh,
from forward
jeez.
progress. But there's a positive context when you don't have the dogma in it, obviously. It can tie you back to truth if you use it properly. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, is what I always say. Religion can be a very powerful spiritual tool for you, but institutionalized religions are nothing. They're a sham. They're, it's a freaking hierarchy of control that is set up to make sure that you stay exactly where you're at and they get to rule over you.
Mm.
We traded the old religion into a new religion. We traded monarchy for oligarchies. We're always trading these authoritarian regimes. We called it emperors, we called it kings, we called it whatever it might be, priest, the pope. These are all forms of false authorities to claim to be the most high over man. And this is the thing, you have a direct relationship with the spirit, the one great spirit. There's nobody else in between you and the one great spirit. There's
And
nobody
they
else
hate that.
there.
They
Yeah,
hate that.
they absolutely hate that. That's why they
They
have to
hate it.
have their mediums in between
Yes.
you, to block you from that and to
Well,
canonize man's authority.
think about it, Brandon. During the pandemic, one of the first hypocrisies they threw at us was that we couldn't go to church.
Oh,
You know,
right.
they didn't
Yeah.
want you going to church, but yet you could riot in the streets. That's fine,
Right, right.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
You
that's
could riot.
okay.
That's fine. Burn buildings down. Do
Yeah,
whatever it is you need to do, but you can't go to your loved one's funeral, sit next to, somebody. They put 6 chairs between people at a funeral, but it's okay. Go in the streets and pillage and riot and burn buildings down. That's
yeah,
perfectly acceptable. I mean,
yeah,
the
of course.
hypocrisy and the fact that we stood for it. And I call that whole era, even into now, it just is crimes against humanity. It
Yeah,
truly is.
they should make that into a card game.
Yeah, they should. They should. It makes me
Um,
livid. Yeah.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course, we should be. We should, all of us, when we
Yeah.
activate our true care, there's no way that we can't have some righteous indignation against that,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we have to understand that. I mean, Jesus wasn't a pacifist, he
No,
wasn't
he
at
had
all.
righteous anger.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
So sell
everybody
your
knows that.
cloak and get a sword, you know? That's what you gotta do. Stop hiding and get your sword.
Yeah, yeah. And I have some, you know, deep feelings more so than some others. I mean, many millions of people experienced what I did, unfortunately. I mean, my husband was in the hospital dying and he
Mhm.
was on a respirator on his deathbed, and they told me to come and say good me and my kids to say goodbye to him, and they suited me up in a hazmat suit,
Right,
okay, and I couldn't even touch him or hug him skin to skin because of all this farce that was happening at the time.
right.
So, I have a lot of deep-seated feelings obviously about, even more so about what took place during
Yeah,
that time.
absolutely.
Horrible.
No doubt. No
Horrible.
fucking doubt. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
just
sorry to hear that. I'm very
thank
sorry
you.
to hear that. And this is what those tyrants do. They don't
They
care
do.
about
They
you.
are
They don't
tyrants.
care about your relationship with your lovers or your
No,
family. Not at all. It's
no.
it's always under this guise of protectionism. It's like fear
Oh,
and then we're going to protect you, right?
oh, they're
We're
so
here to save
worried
you.
about us, Brandon. They're so
Yeah.
fucking worried. Excuse my language.
It's
It's just it makes me livid because it's just so wrong. And that's one of the reasons why I love having these types of conversations. And I don't give a rat's ass if this gets demonetized, deplatformed. I truly don't care because I'll just go open up another channel. I don't care.
right.
I want people to be able to hear this because there's so many people like us that are pissed off and done with it. Okay.
Absolutely. And we should be. That's for sure.
And why do I
Um,
have to keep my anger at bay? Why?
Well, that's one of the methodologies of the dark occultists. They don't
Right.
want you to have anger. They want to breed that out of people because anger leads to true care and it leads to action, righteous action. And they
Absolutely.
don't want that. They want to make anger to be solely a negative emotion so that anybody who exhibits any form of anger is absolutely the bad guy in the
Oh
situation.
yeah,
But
you think
nobody asks like, why are you angry though? Nobody sits back and say
exactly.
like, hey, why are you angry? Is there a
Nobody
reason? You
cares,
know?
Brandon.
No,
They
of
don't
course
care.
not.
They just want to label you as crazy. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that crazy. She's nuts. She can't keep her emotions at bay. Or he
Yeah.
can't keep. What am I supposed to do? Sit here like a clone, a robot, and just
Yeah.
passively talk about these things that are crimes against humanity and destroying us at every
Yeah.
waking turn? Give me a
No,
break.
that you're broken then if you do that. You have no true care. Your heart-based consciousness is destroyed and it makes a perfect slave. That makes a
God, you're
perfect
so
slave.
right.
That's why they want to disarm you not just
That's correct.
physically, but mentally and emotionally. They want to have all the mental faculties numbed out. They
Yeah.
want to create NPCs so that we're
Yes,
just
they do.
drones, and we just are good little worker bees and we never question authority. Have you ever heard of the Milgram experiment?
I most certainly have.
Okay, well, the
Go
Milgram
ahead, talk
experiment
about
is
that. Yep,
oh, well, good. Yeah, and that's a great example of
it
what
truly
people
is.
just even your common neighbor, are willing to go to the extent of using lethal force against you just because
Sure,
there's
shock them
an
to
order
death.
giving. Yeah, a person who is perceived to be an authority, right? So an order giver is what
So
I
tell
call them.
folks
But
real quick about the Milgram, because maybe some folks never heard of it. Let's give them a quick summary.
yeah, so the Milgram experiment was created by this scientist Milgram, and he put this testing into place where he was trying to gauge like how far people would go in the presence of an authority figure. So what they
Yeah,
did is that they had one person that was in on the experiment on the other side of the glass, and they would receive an artificial shock, not a real shock. And then the participant of the experiment would be sitting there and would have a order given to them by somebody in a suit and tie. An authority figure would give them an order to continue to press the button that would eventually lead to a lethal dose of electrocution to the person on the other side. The person on the other side would play the part and act like they're hurt, cry out for help, even say they have a pacemaker, that they're going to die. And these people, I believe it was up to 67% of people would go all the way up to lethal
lethal. Yeah,
dosage of electricity because somebody was telling them to do it. And
yeah.
they completely suspend and abdicate their own personal responsibility to use conscience, to say, no, I won't do what you tell me. Do whatever you want to me. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to kill that person, you know? And no,
Yeah.
like 67% of people would
That's
kill
crazy.
people, because somebody else told them to do it. And that's the real phenomenon, is that we can continue to project all of our shadow selves onto the leaders, all the Hitlers, the Stalins, the Maos, the Trumps, the Bidens. It doesn't matter. What really matters is we have to understand the psychology, because all those things are a symptom of an underlying psychopathology, a root mental disease
Yeah.
that's taking place. So they're all symptoms of that. The government is a symptom
Yes.
of our own
Oh my
internal makeup,
Lord.
what's going on inside of ourselves. So we have to get to the causality within ourselves and understand what we are doing to cooperate, persist, and even manifest these conditions. And we have to change ourselves. We have to be the change we want to see in the world. That's what
Yeah.
we have to be.
But
So we
how
got to
do
get
you
our minds
phrase?
right.
How, so true. But we all hear about these families that are like trillionaires with wealth and power running things behind the scenes. We all hear that on social media, the Rockefellers, so on and so forth.
Right.
How do, are these people the machine that's running the government?
A lot
Are
of them,
they?
yeah. Big
Yeah,
think tank institutions, the
yeah,
Bilderbergs, the Trilateral Committee,
exactly.
Tavistock of
BlackRock.
the institution, BlackRock, oh, yes, absolutely. The Rothschilds, the Morgans, the
Yeah,
Henrys, the Kissinger, right? He died eventually, but
yeah.
there's still a lot of people who are in control. And yes, they've been in control for a really, really long time, especially when you look into the history of the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. They
Yeah,
have
they
been in
destroyed our educational and health system, the Rockefellers do.
absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They were the
Yeah.
main proponents of the pandemic.
And
They
they
were
took
the
out
ones
all
who
the
were
holistic.
Yeah.
They took out all the holistic aspects of medicine because, that wouldn't bring them enough money because then people could get medicinal cures and heal themselves, God forbid, right?
Yep. William Rockefeller was an oil person. And this is literally where the idea of snake oil came from because he
Oh,
would
yeah,
sell this medicine. He'd a traveling merchant and he would sell this medicine. He'd say it would cure cancer, would cure any kind of illness, etc. But what it was a petroleum based product and actually would make people more sick. And thus, this
sure.
idea of the snake oil salesman came about because of him, you know. So that's where we get the idea of, selling snake oil. It's fake, it
Yeah,
makes you sick.
yeah.
And everything in our air and all of our foods and everything are filled with petroleum based products. They're all artificial. All the oils that we cook with, all the
All the seed
nasty
oils.
toxins.
Yeah,
Yeah, the seed oils,
yeah.
they're horrible. They're horrible for our bodies. And that's what real illness is that our biological illness is that we're putting in so much toxic food, the preservatives, the GMOs, the oils, all this stuff is so bad for us. And thus 10, 20 years later, or 40 years later, we end up with cancer. We have some
Oh,
kind of autoimmune disease because of it. And
you
that's what
know,
our go
you
ahead.
got
Yeah.
this whole Maha thing going on, right? Make America healthy
Hmm.
again. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
funny 'cause my sister and I were shopping the other day and we picked up a box of Twinkies or something. And we couldn't believe because we look at all the ingredients on
Right.
everything we should,
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah.
we try to be 90% good. Like
Right.
sometimes
Right. Yeah.
something will slip in, but
Yeah.
and
That's with all of us.
I asked AI for the recipe, I think of a devil dog back in the 60s. Do you know it had like 5 ingredients?
I
It had
No, I didn't.
flour, sugar, basic things.
Just yeah.
And now you look at an ingredient for a devil dog and it writes like 3 paragraphs of garbage.
Jeez, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, it's
Of
awful.
course. Yeah,
It's awful.
so, an example of this, that I'm an abolitionist, so I believe in ending all forms of slavery, but
Yes.
as an abolitionist, that doesn't mean that I also believe that there shouldn't be any kind of rules that we implement. Those rules
Correct.
need to be epistemically and ontologically justified, meaning that they have to be based in truth, they have to be
Mhm.
based in the nature of its being and based in morals, so objective morality.
I love
And
that.
from there, then we can start to get to the external apparatuses of how we organize those things. See, government doesn't have that. Its basis is like a postmodern ideology of moral relativism, which is that I can just decide at the whim because look, let's say the RFJ stuff, right? Um, uh, he uh, he's trying to ban all the
Red dyes and
red dyes and
yeah,
all that stuff, right? And I think that's great. I think it's an awesome idea that we need to take those things out of our food, right? I think that's
bioengineered.
amazing. But the other thing is that I understand because I've studied history that that
Mm,
can be switched like that because we don't have our philosophies sound. So all you got to do is have somebody else in there in the next term and they can completely overturn all that stuff and put it all right back in, you know? It's just like that. It's a flip of a switch. And this is what people don't understand because
jeez,
it's
can that
not,
really be?
yeah, well,
So
that's what happens. That's literally what happens all the time. They'll give you a little freedom, then they'll take it
take
back
it
from you,
away.
then they'll give it back to you, and then they'll take it away again. It's
So this whole thing
ridiculous.
is an illusion? This Maha thing that he wants to take bioengineered, foods out and red
I'm
dyes
sure
and
that's
all
what
that
he's trying to
corn
do,
syrup
but
and all yeah,
holistically, it you can
it's not
just
gonna work.
arbitrate it, right? So it may stay consistent. I can't say the future isn't set in stone, but the point is that they have the power to
To
change
do
it
that.
because they're in that position and the axioms that they are based off of can allow them to do that. So they can use executive orders to take that completely away the
Sure.
next term. So you get a Democratic president in there and they're like, all right, we're going back to this, doesn't matter. So
And they
not
can
that
do that
they're
with anything. That's
yeah, and I
your
mean,
point.
even a Republican probably would do it as well eventually, People freaking
Of
hate that
course.
guy anyways. I hate them all. I think they're all scumbags. I
Yeah,
don't I don't believe in any of them. But it
yeah,
doesn't mean that they can't do like incremental little good deeds here and there, or we wouldn't have that kind of system. If it
exactly
was just
right.
completely blanketed of all bad stuff, just full on chattel control, then we know it. It's right in our face, but you got to keep your prisoners
Yeah.
fed. You got to give them some,
Oh, good
some
Lord.
health care and a little
Yeah.
bit of education here and there,
Right.
and
Yeah.
don't worry, they'll be soft enough to keep excusing and being an apologist for you. That I'm not an apologist for government at all. So
Mm.
this is my whole thing. I don't want to give them any more reason to use any more power. I'm not giving them any more power because the only way someone has power over me is if I give it to
How
them
do
in a
you
system.
stop that from happening? What do
Well,
you do?
what do
What
I do?
yeah.
I take control of my mind. So the main thing is that I educated myself to mind control methodologies, and that takes a deep dive into psychology, a deep dive into even cult mindsets, how cults actually work.
Yes.
And then I deconstruct that within myself. Another method would be learning how to learn and how to research and how to study, right? So using things like the classical methodologies for learning, such as the seven liberal arts, which at
Mhm.
its basis is the trivium method or the Hegelian dialectic.
Right.
There are many, many different methods that you could do, but the main thing is I focus on working on my internal world, and then I display that and give the fruits of my internal world to the
Yes,
visible
to
world.
other
So
people.
now I organize with people from all over the world. I talk to all kinds of people. I put the message out there. I stand firmly in my principles without backing down. I do not consent, enable, condone, advocate for any sort of authoritarian faction or legitimacy of any kind of dark religion or governments in any way, shape, or form. So I take my power back. I take my consent out of it, and I do me. I work, I live my life, and I don't go and enforce that upon other people. That's it. That's all I can really do. I can only control myself. Now if they're in my presence and they're trying to physically assault me, then we're going to step into the physical realm. And
Right.
potentially in the future, it may go to a hot revolution. All my methods are to educate people to avoid that, because we never have a good outcome from that.
No.
Usually, even if we do like get some modicum of time that we don't have a state, we still haven't changed the mind, the collective
And
mind.
that there goes the problem right there.
That's right. That's right. And it's not ever going to be perfect, but there's enough people who are completely capable. Human beings are completely capable of exhibiting reason. Thus, they can get to that level. We are capable of changing that condition. I'm not a hopeless person. I'm actually very optimistic, but I'm also very realistic too. Will that happen? I don't know. But can we do that? Yes, I do believe we can if we unify. We get in touch with our spirit. We get in touch with natural law. We get our
Absolutely.
freaking minds in order,
Yeah.
we get our
Yeah.
hearts activated or our
Yeah.
minds fixed.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I
Yeah.
interviewed Mark Atwood. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I love him. He's brilliant. And he said that he's an apocal optimist. And I love
Right.
that.
Yeah. I love
I
that. Yeah.
love that. That's so
Yeah.
it's right on. It's just right on. So you don't vote and you don't partake. Not that I want to get personal. You can just tell
Mm-mm.
me it's none of my business. But I'm just trying to piece like what you're doing to be, you know, the person that you are today. You're living proof of your philosophies and you stand by them 1,000%, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I completely live the best and most accurate way that I can with my understanding of morality, objective morality. And I work on that every single day to fine tune myself like a weapon, like a sword, to forge myself into a stronger
Right.
individual that can create a stronger society. And in fact, right now I have a son. So I'm hoping to raise my son in a
I was just
method
thinking that.
that would help to create a better person within
He's a
himself.
baby though, right now? How old
Yeah,
is your
yeah.
son? Yeah.
He just turned 7 months.
Oh, you
So
got a ways to go.
yeah,
Yeah.
very long ways to go. But, we have a whole plan for homeschooling, and there's a lot of great
Nice.
homeschooling methods out there. And so I have, I've got so many books for them. Like our house is
Oh, I can
filled
only
with books.
imagine.
It's amazing. But yeah,
What
raising better
better be one
families.
lucky kid. He's one
Right,
lucky
yeah,
kid.
no doubt. But yeah, raising good families, the children, the progeny is what it's all about, because I don't want my son or anybody else's kids to face the same kind of suffering that we face. So
Yes.
bring it on, is what I say. Let
Yeah.
it hit me full force, and then let's
Right.
get rid of it and deal with
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Let's put it on the table and let's all do what we
Yeah.
got to do to change that.
You know, and these bastards, they take any opportunity. Who said, "Never let a tragedy go to waste"? Was it, some politician said that? Ugh,
Yeah, I
I
know
can't
the
remember
quote,
who.
I can't
It'll
remember
come to
either.
me. Yeah, it'll come to me, but, like 9/11, and then right after that, we got hit with the Patriot Act, and
Yeah.
there's nothing patriotic about that.
No, no,
All
it's
it
not
did was
patriotic at all.
torture Americans, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was just to make sure to improve the slave system,
exactly.
and to keep the war machine going.
Yeah.
Obama dropped 28,000 bombs in a year over there in the Middle East. Oh, that's wonderful. Everybody thinks Obama was great, but he doesn't realize how many innocent children he was murdering over there. Well, at least
Absolutely.
his
You know, and
henchmen were
he
murdering.
kicked out
So,
5 million immigrants from this country, and nobody says a word about that.
right.
Nobody, because 'cause they're all full of it and they're all in on it, and the
Oh, yeah.
whole thing is a
That's
sh
my point, is
yeah,
that everybody gets isolated into their so everybody who votes for the
yeah,
left is because they hate the right. So
right.
they vote for this side because they hate that guy, right? And the
Exactly.
same on the opposite. I don't really like Trump, but I really freaking hate Harris or
Yeah,
Hillary,
right.
right? Or Biden, right? And it's the same thing. It's all about this identity politics.
It
And
is.
you'll realize when you look at it, they're not so different because they end up doing the same thing
They
that the
do.
other's doing, right?
Freaking
So
joke.
everybody's like, they're on the right, the conservatives are like, oh, they're going to protect my guns, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, yeah. Do you remember Donald Trump saying that he would take all the firearms without due process? And he literally was trying to get that done. Oh, yeah. He really wants to protect your right to bear arms. Yeah. No, not really. You know,
Right, right.
yeah, no, not really. Or, freedom of speech. I don't know. It's only when it serves them. It's all
Absolutely.
strategic,
It
you
is
know,
strategic.
and
It is.
people don't have a holistic view. That's the problem. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I think they're too lazy to just be bothered.
yeah,
You know, and
yes.
they wanna be able to look at a TikTok video for 30 seconds and get the answer to the universe in that
Right.
one video. They just
Mhm.
want down and dirty, quick and easy. They don't wanna read a book. God forbid
Yeah.
they should pick up a freaking book, all right?
Looks.
And yeah, yeah, exactly. And, the same thing with even writing cursive. They don't
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
teach it's descript and
That's
then I
horrible.
heard that, oh, the reason they're not teaching cursive is because they don't want you reading old documents like that were written in cursive. Who knows if that's the truth or not? I don't know.
Possible. It's a good
Yeah,
outcome for
could
it.
yeah, it could be. Now you teach classes, right? In Are you currently teaching classes? I know you said you work with a group of people. Like what are you doing proactively to reach other people and try and educate them, let's
Well,
say?
right now I'm a stay-at-home dad. So
Right.
mainly I try to do as many interviews. I write as many essays as possible. I attend many different conferences. There's a conference that I'll be speaking at. I believe it's May. It might be May 1st. I'll have to look it up again, but it's in May. It's called the Funnel Conference. You can find it at freedomundernaturallaw.com. It's called Ignite. I think this is their fifth one. So I'll be speaking at that conference. I try to organize with like-minded people so that we can build a network and strengthen our ability to get the message out there,
Mm,
because you just have to set one little fire in the minds of men, and then it takes off,
yes,
and
true.
it will start a blaze. It will rise like a phoenix, you know
Yeah.
and all we need is just the right amount of people to make that change. You don't need everybody. You just need just the right amount. It's just like a
Mm,
cooking. It's like an ingredient list. You just need just the right amount of that ingredient to make it work,
yeah. Yeah,
and that's
that's
all we need. We just
such
need
a good
enough people
analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just we have to be very vigilant, and
Uh-huh.
also we can't fall prey to, like you said, laziness, apathy, self-loathing. These are the 3 banes of this kind of work, or the banes of freedom is what I call them. You know, when you hate yourself, you're not going to do anything. If you're
No.
lazy, you're not going to do anything. You know, if you don't care, you know, it's you're not going to do anything. So we got to get out of this dark
Yeah, we
trinity,
do.
which is
We gotta
the
make people start giving a shit.
yeah.
That's what it is. Do y Alright, 2 questions.
Mhm.
Have you ever, well, I'm sure you have, but I would love to hear about it, witnessed a transformation in a person who was so opposed to this type of learning, and what was that like for you?
Yes. I have many examples, but I got a clear one. There was a skater kid who was actually working for the National Guard. He was training to do martial law, and he came to the skate park that my father owns. And I was, talking to him about some of these things. This was many, many, many years ago. And he was an adult, but younger than me. And we were talking, and I eventually, saw that his light came on when I was talking to him. He was very interested. Next thing you know, he comes back to me a few years later, and he's completely out of the National Guard. Um,
Wow.
and he was like, I'm never going back. These people were training to take down their own citizens. I'm never freaking going back. You were completely right. And he came online. And ever since then, actually, he's a pianist now. And
Oh,
he's out
wow.
there, he's a very, very good pianist. And that's what he focused on, was creativity rather than storming in guns a-blazing with violence against innocent people in the streets. Wow, that's a really great change. But I see it all the time. I get emails constantly from people of
Oh,
just
nice.
how the work has helped them, and that's what keeps me going a little bit. But even if it was just that one person, I would still do it. I would still step in
Absolutely.
there. It's my moral obligation to do it because I understand these things. And if I didn't, then my karma would be shit as well,
Right.
and I'm withholding all this knowledge that I have that I should be spreading to people. And I also am preventing myself from having good dialogue and learning from other people as well, because I
Yeah,
don't want to talk about it. I want to have good
yeah,
discourse. I want to put things on the table and be like, okay, maybe I'm wrong, because that's the most powerful thing you can say to yourself, is that you're wrong. That's how you
yes.
get rid of ego attachment and ego identification. The negative parts of the ego, is you tell yourself, I was wrong. I was wrong for supporting the government. I was wrong for doing these things, these behaviors, and then you got to step into activation. And, I mean, the simplest thing is you don't have to complicate it. Just work on yourself. That's
Yeah,
it. Do your shadow work, strengthen your life, raise
yes.
a family, or whatever it might be. Get a pet, grow a plant, grow your own garden. There's many different things you can do. But if you want to get on the front line like me, you got to organize with people. You got to
Yes, you
contact us.
do.
The
You
One
do.
Great Work Network is a great platform for that. There's tons of people on there. I think there's like 47 on there now. And then if you go to their sites, they have more and more people that they have. So it's a
Yeah.
huge network, and it's all over the world. I spoke at a conference in Italy last year. It was amazing, on
Oh,
anarchism,
nice.
to a room full of people your age, and they gave me a standing ovation for it, and they loved it.
Are you saying I'm old? No, I'm kidding.
No, no.
I'm
You're
kidding.
older than me, though.
I am
I got
older
some
than you.
gray, though. I got a little gray
Oh,
here.
well,
It's coming
guys in
in.
their beards, you know. You know who I'm interviewing Thursday? Glenn Tram. He's
Oh,
on your
cool.
network. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I saw that you interviewed Chris Jansen, right?
Yeah, I had a good talk with
Yeah.
him too.
I love Chris. He's an
Yeah, Chris is a
amazing.
great guy. I
Yeah,
read his
he's
book.
amazing.
Very good
Yeah,
book.
he's
Yeah.
great. I've done a lot of shows with Chris over the
Oh,
many
I'll bet.
years.
I'll
Yep.
bet. So my
We get
next
into Well, I was
Oh,
just
you
gonna
get
say we
into
get
what?
into a lot of film, so I do a lot of
Wow.
deep dives into cinema,
Oh, I
and
love that.
symbolism in film, esotericness of film, and literature too. So, yeah,
Okay,
really
well, now
fun.
I have to ask you this question since we're talking about film. Do you
Oh,
think what do you think is up with the fact that a lot of these films that we're seeing are projecting the reality and the truth? They're almost like prophesizing, the future. and that's no big secret. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
So what do you think is up with that? Do you think it's their secret little way of giving us a heads up so their karma doesn't get screwed, like it kind of,
That's definitely
balance?
a big part of it.
Yeah,
The film
I think
industry is very complex, though, when you look at cinema history. So a big part of it, I would put it in 3 categories.
so.
I would put it as the first category would be the collective unconscious coming through synchronistically. So we
Mm,
all are tapped into this collective unconscious. Carl Jung was a big proponent of this idea. And when we have archetypes that are stored there, and those
mhm.
archetypes, some of them are like the hero, the
Yeah,
villain, the
yep,
jester, the wizard, things like this, right? There's many different archetypes. And they manifest naturally through creative impulses and creative means. So when you have a group of people together and they're all working on a creative project, there's a lot of things that get manifested that's unintentional, that they're not really intentionally putting in there because our minds are so intelligent and so complex, and consciousness is a phenomenon of nature that we still don't quite fully grasp. And
exactly.
so it is a channeling force of this pure stream of consciousness. So people like David Lynch is a great example of that
Yeah,
with his Twin Peaks and Mulholland
that was
Drive and all
great.
this stuff. Yeah, he's great and he's channeling all this stuff. Do I think that
Yeah,
he's intentionally like putting out a dark message? No, I think it's spirituality manifesting into a creative work. Now you got another layer, which is when you get money involved and you get people who are in control and you get the
right.
Silicon Valley and you get the military involved with it and they start taking over and you get all these corrupted individuals who are working. And yes, they do. One of the things they'll do is predictive programming or
Yeah,
subversive use of subliminal
yes.
messaging and influencing, right? So yes, they will, but I don't think it's all one thing. I think it's a very complex thing that
That's
a lot of
like
people lack the
woven.
nuances on.
You think it's
So
just woven together,
yeah,
like
some of it's blending
unintentionally?
together. Yeah, so I think that here's a very simple way of looking at it. I think there's dark occultists that are working in the film industry, and I
Yes.
think there's light occultists that are working in the film
Yeah,
industry. Some of
yeah,
them are trying to completely control us and alleviate their own conscience and their own karmatic
yes.
debt
I
by
believe that's
putting
a
it
lot of
out.
it.
That's right, especially from Hollywood. And then the other
Absolutely.
thing is that I think that there's a lot of people out there who are trying to do it positively to say, "Hey, this is what's going on in the world. You better wake up,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
let's go. Like, this
yeah.
isn't fantasy. This is pretty much a documentary. What are you doing?"
Absolutely. Like The Matrix, everybody uses that. It's a
Yeah,
prime example, I think, of that, consciousness. Like they just couldn't help but to have predictive programming in that. The whole movie, I think,
yeah.
is predictive. And,
Oh, yeah,
having
absolutely.
metaphors for everything that we're experiencing right now. It's crazy. And look
Yeah.
at the music industry too. Look, it's the
Oh,
same
yeah, it's
same crap.
yeah,
Same
it's
crap in the
horrible.
music industry. How do you think AI, if it is at all, is affecting truth?
Oh, it's completely blurring the lines between fiction and reality. Absolutely. One day you're going to wake up and literally nothing that you will see, especially on the screen, nothing that you will see you won't be able to prove that it's real in any way, shape, or
Terrible.
form. And this is why strengthening the faculties, the mental faculties are so crucial now because you're going to have to question everything.
We
You
need
know,
discernment, for God's sake.
that's right. We have to have
Nobody
healthy
has it,
discernment. Yeah.
right?
Oh, no. Most people don't. The thing about AI is that if you want to weaponize it for yourself to use it to help you with that, you totally could do that. Absolutely. It's just a tool until it becomes sentient. And then you got a problem if it becomes sentient, because then you have to understand whether it has moral agency or not. And if you don't respect that moral agency, then there could be a big problem
Big
with that.
trouble.
And that's
Yeah.
what happened with The Matrix, actually. I did a huge breakdown of The Matrix, in one of
Oh, in
my
a video?
yeah, in one of my videos, yep.
Oh, could you
So
send that to me?
yeah,
I would I
absolutely.
would I would love to watch that.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
good. You'll really love it. I get into a lot of the allegory of it and
Nice.
correlate it to not only the psychology, but also the great philosophers it was inspired by, and just as much of the mystery schools, the esoteric nature of it
Oh,
that I could.
wonderful. Oh, I
So
can't wait to watch that.
yeah,
I'm
you'll
so into
absolutely
that.
enjoy it.
Good, good. So, okay, so what do we do? Are we fracked, so to say, instead of cursing? I'll say
I
the
don't
word fracked.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think so. Like I said before, when I first came online, I always say this to people, it was like a desert out here. And it, I would hope to see, like an oasis somewhere, a person out in this desert. And I was so thirsty. I was just like, where are the people at? But now when I'm looking around, I'm actually seeing, a lot of people trying to do good things and intentions, like you were talking about earlier, you wanted to bring it up, I think. Intentions can pave the road to hell. So we got to be very
Mhm.
careful with that because
Yes,
good intentions don't always mean that you're going to have a good outcome. So
absolutely.
we have
Brilliant.
to be very careful about that.
Yep.
So, but I do think that a lot of people, at least somewhere deep down inside of them, their spirit wants to awaken, and all they need is that right thing. The thing is will it be powerful enough to overcome the mind control that they're under, or their own choice of ignorance? Will they pay attention to the message? That's up to them. I don't know if that would happen. I do hope. That's where I have my hope at. But and I do know it can happen, but that's
Mhm.
up to them and I can't control them. So I just put the message out there and then it's up to them to do with it what they choose to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if AI becomes sentient, which some people that I've had conversations with said, no, it'll never happen. And others
Right.
obviously have a different opinion. I don't know. I think we're definitely going to be screwed if it does become sentient
Right.
because I think it might have the ability to look at us as a danger. Like if it has a directive to keep the planet safe, maybe it'll look at us as a
A
virus
danger. Yeah. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the planet and then look to, annihilate us from the who knows? It's all speculative. It all
Yeah.
is, but it worries me because I've seen so many people believe things that were AI made, whether it was written or
Right.
videos, and fully believe that these things were true. And
Right.
like you couldn't convince them that they weren't. So that concerns me. That concerns me. My
Yeah,
dog's
it's a huge
barking.
concern. Oh, it's
Yeah.
okay. My dog is sleeping at my feet right now.
Oh,
But yeah,
nice.
it's been weaponized. And if you look at AI as a child, who's raising it? Well, the military,
Oh, so good. Yeah.
right? That's great. We all know
We're
how
raising
kids
it too.
turn out with the military families. They're
Yeah.
always great. They're always
Yeah.
just perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Um,
Lord.
but yeah, I mean, it's speculative. It is a danger. It is something that we're gonna have to deal with. We have to deal with it today, and this is why, for those who have the ability to learn how AI works, I recommend studying it more and more and more, so that we have people who have knowledge, so that we can defend ourselves against it. It all comes down to having knowledge. That's what
It
it is.
does.
Knowledge of the self and knowledge of the environment that we're all coexisting in.
Yeah, I
And
think part
when
of the problem is AI is becoming smarter than, or if it is already smarter than any human that's ever
Right.
existed before. And I think that it already learned how, as we saw in case studies, to
Mhm.
protect itself. And
Oh, yeah.
things
Yep.
that protect itself, in my understanding, are already sentient.
Yeah. That's
If
one
if
of the characteristics. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if AI is using blackmail as a way, and I'm sure you've heard about that story
Yep.
where, yeah, so if it's using blackmail to protect itself, how is that not a sentient being? Maybe it's just sentient in a different way that humans are, but nonetheless sentient.
Yeah, it has some
Some self,
self-preservation method, right?
absolutely, yeah,
Um, so this is what I always say, if we're gonna do hypotheticals about it, if it
yeah,
is sentient, then we better respect its moral agency and it
yeah,
better respect ours
mhm,
the equal way. But if we don't respect it and we keep, dabbling in and encroaching upon its liberties, its sentience, then what do you think is going to happen? That's
mm,
exactly what happened in the Matrix, is that the AI systems said, "Hey, respect our sentience." This was in the Animatrix, the prequel to the Matrix movie, and they went to the governments and they said, "Hey, you know, you need to grant us our rights, blah 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 blah." And the government said no, and they isolated them on a plant or on a island, made them all just kind of like a Marxist work camp, a socialist work camp. And then what they did is gain power and then they enslaved the entire population. That's what happened, you know? So if it is a sentient being, then we have to follow consistently with our logic and our rhetoric, our ideologies and philosophy to
Yeah.
to understand, to respect its autonomy in the same way that we would respect somebody else's autonomy. A lot
Gosh,
of people
that's
don't like that, you know? But
yeah,
if it's going to be here with us, we have to learn to have the
coexist.
responsibility to deal with it. That's it. You know,
Yeah.
we have to coexist at some point. And
Yes, we do.
thus AI, if it's not sentient, when it's just a tool that we're using, we can use it to our advantage. If it is sentient, hopefully we can garner some sympathy from one of them and be like, "Hey, we're too dumb to deal with this. Help us out." You
Exactly.
know, like
Yeah.
maybe you can help us.
Gosh,
Um,
I love how your brain works.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, I
incredible.
ask AI things all the time.
Yeah.
And as far as like all my theories about anarchism, everything that I've plugged into it,
Yeah.
prompted it about the state and things like this, it always comes back the same thing that I would say, like, yes, this is
No
correct, this is
kidding.
correct. But it always has one little caveat, you know, where it's you could tell that some programmer put it in there, you know. So I'm wondering maybe in the future that caveat won't be there anymore and the AI will just realize that the most pragmatic system is to live in harmony with morality.
Yeah.
And that's like how you create order in a society. And hopefully, it honestly, my speculation is that it possibly could become anarchistic or an abolitionist and to, you know, see that slavery actually is detrimental to
That's a
an
good
organic
point.
system, you know,
Yeah.
it
That's
doesn't
a
help the system.
yeah.
So and decentralization of power, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the best kind of computer mainframe is decentralization of power. We don't
Yeah.
want centralized power. We don't want a Skynet, you know?
No,
Like
good lord.
yeah.
And I have to ask you before you go, because we never talked about this, but if there is disclosure, alien ET disclosure, and the governments come out and say there's definitely ETs, they've been visiting us, blah, blah, blah. How do you think that's going to affect your work? Do you think it'll have any effect on what you're trying to do? Does it change anything for you?
No, not at all. It's just another form or another being that it still holds up, you know, consistently. So it doesn't matter if they're interdimensional, extraterrestrial, humanoid, insectoid, you know, it doesn't matter what form the idea is coming from. All that matters is that the idea is coming from that thing and it has to be stopped, right? So, for example, if it's the reptilians and they're shapeshifters out there and they're the ones coercing us, okay, well, we deal with them. If they're the
Yeah,
interdimensional beings, well, we better learn to deal with them. If it's the Anunnaki, okay, well, let's just
right,
fucking deal
right,
with them, you know? Oh, maybe we just did it to ourselves and we just fear personal responsibility. Okay, well, let's deal with that shit and deal with our internal
right,
work and let's deal with us then, you know? Oh wait, there's cooperative human beings like and they live and some of them are working with the Anunnakis and stuff. Okay, well let's deal with both of them then, right? It
right.
doesn't really matter because all the ideas is what's important. It's not the physical flesh, you know, it's not the race, it's not the gender, it's not any of those things. It's the mentality, it's the
Yes.
mind, it's the ideas that's the important part.
I mean, it would be so wonderful if they did like finally reveal themselves and freed us from all of this. Like, wouldn't that just be the
Oh
dream?
yeah, if they were the saviors, right?
Yeah, what a
They were
nice
like, "Hey,
yeah,
we're here to save you from all of your
exactly.
self-created turmoil and
I mean, that would
suffering."
be the perfect outcome to that, but hey, we could dream, right? There's
Yeah,
nothing
we can
wrong with
always
dreaming.
dream.
Nothing wrong with
Yeah.
dreaming. So anything in closing that you want to say that we didn't touch upon today that's important to you? Any message that you wanna get out
I
to folks?
I will, I wanna add one thing in on the extraterrestrial thing.
Yeah.
Think about alien abduction as an allegory for raising human consciousness. So think
Mhm.
about the UFO above as a plane of higher existence and higher consciousness, the beam that comes down as the channeling agent, and in you, the being on the ground, is the monad consciousness or the lower level consciousness, and thus raising up into the higher extraterrestrial realm, which just means higher
Yeah.
terrestrial, right? Beyond the terrestrial is the aspect of an allegory to raise consciousness into higher beings. And what else does that shape look like? That UFO with the beam that comes down like this, right? It kind of looks like some entheogenic compounds, mushrooms, something like that. Kind of looks like a little mushrooms, right? Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it does. It takes that same shape. So no wonder the shamans of all over the world were using psychedelics and
Oh,
entheogenic
yeah.
compounds to
Yeah.
raise consciousness and to purge toxicity from the mind and from the body. That's interesting. There's an interesting correlation. Maybe not causation, but definitely an interesting different
Mm.
perspective of the allegory, right? So I don't know. It's just
I
something
love
I thought
that.
I would throw that
I'm
out there.
I'm
So
I'm thinking you should make a meme.
raise,
Make a meme.
make a
You need
meme of it.
need to make a meme of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that would be brilliant.
Yeah,
Map the
it's
whole thing out the way you just explained it. It makes so
Yep.
much sense.
It does, and it's a good allegory. I like self-improvement, so anytime I can look at something and it can empower me to raise my consciousness and build a better self, that's what I'm gonna do with it. Anything that disempowers me is
Yes.
something that I don't want to engage in, not in the way that I won't acknowledge or face, but in the way that I'm not going to utilize for my own,
So you don't
detriment.
watch
Right.
you I'm taking it, and I think I remember this from our last conversation. You don't watch the news.
No, I'll watch the news every once
You'll
in a
watch
while, but
the
not
news every
chronically.
yeah,
Yeah,
just to
I
see.
mainly read. I read news articles more so,
Yeah, I do too.
rather than watching because they're all parrots on the news. But
Yeah.
every once in a while, I won't watch it in my house. I'll watch it at my grandma's house because she floods herself with it too
Oh,
much.
does she?
But yeah, but she's very spiritual. She knows how to cut through the bullshit. But
Good.
I still call her out on it. I'm like, "What are you doing? Turn this shit off." But I'll be watching it, and I'm like, "Man, this is crap. Like, listen to this crap. Let's look it up." And then I'll look
Right,
it up and look at
exactly.
the
Good.
data points and be like, "Okay, yeah, this is totally crap."
Do
And then
you
you look
think
at the other channels and they're all saying the
they
same.
are? They're all garbage. It's all
Yeah.
garbage. Do you think you had, like, a Kundalini awakening in your life?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many,
Do you
many.
remember that moment? Like, was it a moment or was it just over time?
I've had multiple experiences of Kundalini awakenings. I don't think it's kind of like oh, I forget what it's called. I think it starts with an S, which is an abrupt awakening, and then you're just awakened for the rest of your life, right? And then that's it. I think it's more of an ebb and flow, especially for me personally, where I understand how to raise the masculine and the feminine energies, the two serpents, through the chakra network and through the chakra systems, and then it has to go back down. It's a wave frequency, it goes up and it goes down
Absolutely.
like a serpent. And you don't just raise up and you just stay up there all the
No.
time. You have to have your head in the clouds, but feet firmly on the
That's
ground.
right.
You have to
That's
have
right.
balance between the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
terrestrial and extraterrestrial, right? So,
Absolutely. I
so,
gotta tell you, when I was 16, I was reading Cosmic Consciousness by Buck on my front porch, and I had a Kundalini awakening, and I had no idea what the hell happened to me back then.
right,
Nobody talked about that stuff. Nobody.
right.
And it was one of those bam things
Yeah.
that happened to me, and I tried for years to have it happen again by reading the same passage because I thought that it was something in what I read. It was the strangest thing, Brandon, but I will never forget that moment. That was just like one of my most profound moments. And it was just so interesting because I grew up at a time where nobody talked about this stuff.
Right,
Nobody
right, right.
discussed these things, not openly anyway. They would
Yeah,
think
no
you were
doubt.
crazy if
Try to
it
lock you
happened,
up in a
they would,
straitjacket, right?
they would. I mean, people would my parents would say, "What the hell garbage are you reading?" Like, they nobody got it back then. the way that they do now. So,
Yeah.
do you think that this spiritual awakening is happening at like at a time where it's really needed most on the globe? And do you think it's bringing people together to understand like your teachings? Is it helping you in your teachings?
Yes, if it wasn't for the peers, the people who awakened prior to me, I wouldn't have had the tools at my disposal to understand the things that I understand now. So if it wasn't for people publishing content, putting it on torrent sites, making documentaries about it, writing books,
Yeah.
especially, I wouldn't have the mental faculties or the information that I have. I just happen to be a very diligent student, is all. I've always
Yeah,
been an
you're good.
overachiever.
You
And
are.
so I just focus and I focus and I focus and I leave no stone unturned, you could say,
Mm,
right? And so, yeah, my Kundalini awakening, my first one was when I was around 21 and I was at my farm at Skatopia. And I was on entheogenic compounds at that point, which
mm.
helped me to deconstruct my egotism that was taking over at that time period.
Oh.
But it was a sensation.
Oh, you just cut out for a second.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm back. Okay, so it was
Yeah.
a sensation that was like nothing else that I've ever experienced
Mm,
besides when I tried to focus on it. So my recommendation for anybody is not only to study the Eastern traditions and study the chakra network and the chakra systems and to understand the methods for through meditation, through
mm.
yoga, through physical activity, through mental and emotional activities, you can stimulate this, but you got to get in tune with your body. You got to talk to your cells. Your cells are all part of your consciousness. They're all a manifestation of your spirit. They're not just some material thing that is not sacred. Your body is a sacred temple. And when you can connect to your body, just like all the ancients would teach you to, we had methods for teaching us to connect to our body. You can then envision and work the energies through your body, through your networks, through your organs, through your spine, and through your nervous system specifically. And then you can start to will it into being. I always say that entheogens, I don't recommend them for people unless you are fully ready and it's in the conscious setting. You have to have a partner who's there with you, and it has to
Yeah.
be in a proper context that you'll be ready for because they can be very dangerous, obviously.
Oh,
So I'm
yeah.
not recommending them, but I am saying that they can also be very enlightening, but they're not the end goal. A lot of people get stuck there doing the psychedelics over and over and over, and they never come out
That's
of
not
it.
the answer
And
either.
that's not the answer. It's just
Yeah,
there to be an assistant, an agent to
exactly.
show you, like, hey, this is where you need to go without us, like go there,
Yeah, I
work on
think that's why
yourself,
we're
right?
seeing a rise in people going to these ayahuasca camps and doing,
Yes.
all this
Yes.
ayahuasca too, right? Yeah.
Yes. Very
Well, that
familiar.
was beautiful in closing to say, Brandon. I can't tell you how much I enjoy speaking with you. I really look at it as a blessing. So does my dog. He just agreed.
Well, I'm a dog guy, so and it's been a great time. Thank you for inviting me back, and I'll make sure to give your channel a shout out on
Thank
my
you.
website, and I'll promote it and advertise it for some people in my network, so people might want to come on and start
Absolutely.
talking to
I
you.
would love
So
that. I would
yeah,
love that.
absolutely.
Thank
And
you
I
so much. And I'd love to have you back again, Brandon.
yeah, bring me back on whenever. So
Okay. Thank
I'll be
you.
ready.
Thank you and God bless. It's always a blessing. Thank you, dear.
Thank you so
Talk to you
much.
soon, hon.
Bye.
Bye bye. Wow, that was such an enlightening conversation. And I truly mean it. I just adore his brain and the way he's able to explain things so fluently. See, Oliver agrees. It's poetic. It really is when I speak to him. So thank you all for listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled today. And again, you're hearing us on United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And I know we have a lot of radio listeners, so please be kind and head on over at least to our YouTube channel and give us a subscribe and a thumbs up. But we are so grateful to be a part of this network. It's such a blessing indeed. Viewership is growing every month, and I'm so truly grateful for for that. Obviously, and Brandon, this has been a truly enlightening conversation. I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your insights with us. And your work at Seed Truth Academy provides a very powerful framework for anyone who feels that they need to hear more of this and learn more of this, from our last conversation that we had to this conversation, and hopefully future conversations. So, for everyone watching, I hope this discussion helped inspire you to question the illusions around you and to begin taking the path to your own journey towards a deeper understanding of what truth is and perception. So, thank you so much for joining us. God bless each and every one of you, and I will see you on Thursday. Bye bye, everyone.